Poverty is caused by inequality and should be eradicated by the government to bring up people above the poverty line. What exactly is this? An imbalance between rich and poor is the oldest and most fatal ailment of all democracies. Did you know that inequality is regarded as the primary cause of poverty? Humans are accountable for actions that may be equal or unequal to others. In other words, a tree's roots grow wider as it grows. Just like as a tree's root develop, it becomes wider. As inequality decreases, so does poverty. This lecture defines poverty and discusses its causes. Example and explanation of how inequality becomes its foundation. Today, I will be discussing poverty and its causes, its examples and explanation of how inequality becomes its foundation. The poor have largely been spared from the effects of recent phases of modest economic expansion, which have occurred after cycles of boom and bust in economic growth, uncontrolled population growth, and extreme inequality between income tiers, regions, and industries are two of the main obstacles to eradicating poverty. Greater access to education, in my opinion, is the superior option. Systematic poverty is reinforced by the absence of educational opportunities in impoverished communities. Education equips people with vital skills and greater employment possibilities, which may help the Philippines overcome poverty. There would be no hunger or malnutrition, homelessness, child labor, and crime in the Philippines. According to the World Data Lab, 42 African countries are in poverty, and in 16 of those countries, the poverty rate is rising. 27 of the world's 28 poorest countries are in sub-Saharan Africa. One each of these countries has a poverty rate of 30%, while the absolute number of people living in the global poverty has decreased over the last several decades. In sub-Saharan Africa, the number has increased and substantially so. In 1990, 278 million people in the sub-Saharan Africa lived in poverty. By 2015, that number had grown to 413 million and is now approaching to 440 million. Poverty, like many other risks to children's development and well-being, is a primary cause of child labor. Families are struggling to make ends and meet and are therefore forced to make the difficult decisions about whether or not to put their children to work. Without prompt intervention, the condition will worsen. In accordance with Child Hope Philippines in their 2016 report, ILO estimated that there are 152 million children who are victims of child labor globally, almost half of whom are in hazardous work. These are children aged 5 to 17, with 64 million girls and 88 million boys. As defined by ILO, the worst forms of child labor are children being enslaved, separated from their families, exposed to serious hazards and illness, and left to for themselves on the streets. Services for children engaging in or transitioning out of child labor, community support for education has grown. Support for families at danger of being involved in child labor, advocacy aimed at strengthening national and local policies that promote and protect children. Working children can get numerous advantages, part-time or casual work, or aiding in a family business under the correct conditions can help develop life skills such as responsibility, money management, balancing work with other activities, acquiring on the on-job skills, and preparing for work as an adult. Child labor is work that deprives children for their childhood, their potential and their dignity that is harmful to physical and mental development. In the Philippines, there are 2.1 million child laborers aged 5 to 17, based on the 2011 survey on the children of the Philippine Statistic Authority or PSA. About 95% of them are in hazardous work. On the other hand, 69% of these are aged 15 to 17 years old, beyond the minimum allowable age for work but still exposed to hazardous work. Hunger is one of the most serious repercussions of poverty in the Philippines. With little money to buy food, Filipinos must survive on a very limited food. Even when food supplies are reliable, they are most accessible in other places where people have enough means to purchase the food. With the help of the government, they should transition to a more open trade policy for rice and other farm products. Eliminate long-standing rice quantitative restrictions to pave the way for a more open trade regime. This will entail amendment of Republic Act number 8178 or the Agricultural Traffication Act, which provides for control over rice importations in excess of the minimum access volume committee under the WTO. The government must muster the political will to undertake this long overdue policy reform to address the single biggest and most pervasive cause of malnutrition in the country. Government still has the option to protect rice farmers by settling imports tariffs that can be reproduced over time to achieve target levels of domestic rice price but avoid wide displacement of high-cost farmers. Ending hunger and malnutrition has been shown in ways to decrease morbidity and mortality, improve the anthropometrics, enhance the treatment of diseases such as tuberculosis, and promote cognitive development. To summarize, poverty is a national, not a personal issue. It should also be addressed urgently by implementing suitable measures. Furthermore, eradicating poverty has become crucial for the long-term and inclusive progress of individuals, societies, countries, and economies. In conclusion, inequality fosters poverty as a result, inequality should be addressed first to drive poverty out of existence. Everyone should help to elevate poverty. The consequences of poverty in order for it to be eradicated sooner. To conclude, poverty is caused by inequality and should be remedied by the government in order to lift people out of poverty. Remember that in order to end poverty, we must work hard or discover other means of subsistence. We look for work in order to earn money, to pay bills, or buy meals. In summary, if we trust ourselves and make the proper decisions, we can abolish poverty.